Good morning. Welcome. You are on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vickie Helm, and today's guest is Stephen Hultquist. And I know my tongue is twisted. I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. I'm so glad you joined us. This is brought to you by the Metadime Digital Network of live shows. Welcome. But as we go on, as we start this, I want to tell you, we go live Monday through Friday, and we share tips, tools, techniques, inspiration, motivation, and those things that are essentially going to give you thrivability in your life. If you're new here, do me a favor, put your name down below and become part of the conversation. We are so happy that you're with us. And if you're one of the fans that watches this show every day or watches the replay every single day, thank you for being here. Today's show is going to be phenomenal. Now, I just want to start this conversation with, have you ever in your whole life, have you ever gotten to the point where you've sabotaged your efforts and you've known it, or even not known it? Have you gotten to the point in your life where you have sabotaged what is happening in your life and you don't know why? And today it's like, how would you like to learn how to just get out of your way, to have more success, better relationships, and have better health, better things? How would you like to learn how to get out of your way? Well, today's show, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking with Stephen, who, I pulled up his bio because he's got such a big bio right now. And we're going to be talking about getting out of our way. And actually, he is certified by the Og Mandino Leadership Institute. And if you don't know who Og Mandino is, definitely go look him up. He is, this is one of the most exciting times to be getting out of your way. It's not just that there is an option for you to succeed, it's that you can transform as well. And today we're going to talk about that. Welcome to the show, Stephen. Thank you for being here.
Well, Vickie, I'm so excited. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to share about how to do this, right? I mean, you asked me before we started, right? Like, how, do people know that they're in their own way? And, how do we do that? Right?
How do you even know that you're getting in your own way? And that's why you're sabotaging your success. How does that happen? Yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
Well, one of the things that I observe is that how many times have you, whoever you are, right, listening to the show, Vickie included, right? How many times have you kind of realized, why can't I do the thing that I know I need to do, whatever that is, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be I want to be able to to get ready for this event, or I want to change how I'm doing this, or I want to learn about that, or I want to expand this part of whatever it is, right? It's very rare that we don't know what to do.
That's true.
Right?
That's really true. Let's call ourselves out right now. It's very rare that we don't know what to do.
But we don't do it.
That's right. It's getting ourselves to do it. You're right.
So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about getting in your own way, right? So you start to ask, okay, so why don't I make the choice that I know is the good choice? Right? Why don't I choose to, some of the stuff that's easy to talk about is like food and exercise, right? Yeah. We don't talk about that, right? So why don't I eat what I know is good for me? And why don't I get out and move my body, the way that I know that I should. We'll come back to that word, by the way, right? Yeah. I should. So what is in my way? And here's the thing that's interesting, a lot of times when we're looking at this, we want to talk about like personality and kind of how we are. We talk about type A and type B.
Yeah.
Like this. And my view is that those actually rest on a different foundation. And the foundation is the way we think.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that.
So what gets in our way is our thinking habits. Mm-hmm. Right? Some guys call this the monkey brain. These are the things that show up when we start to look at making a different choice.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't do that. You'll never get it right. It won't be good enough. People won't like you. Whatever those things are, right? They come up and, oh my gosh, now what do I do? Right? Because I am faced with my thoughts. Now, here's the tricky thing. Your thoughts aren't you.
Agreed.
And you are not your thoughts.
That's right.
Right? They're different. So we talked about 3 things, right? 3 ways of taking a look at what gets in your way. The first one is becoming aware that you're not your thoughts and that you can become aware of your thoughts. You can begin to separate your thinking habits from yourself.
And I think that's some of the most important thing, because aren't we really trapped a lot of the time by believing we are our thinking? And then we can't access who we actually are, or what we actually are, our potential is.
Totally, because if I can't separate my thoughts from me, then I think that I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Effectively, right? I believe my thoughts to be me, and so I can't break out of what my thoughts tell me.
You know, it's so interesting that you're saying this. And I think it's so important, because I think people actually, and this is where I think we're in our way. It's just like some people believe so strongly in the thought of who they are. They'll just say something like, well, this is who I am. This is me, you know, and that's it. Take it all. They don't understand that they lose their malleability or the ability to shape themselves differently based on the fact that they actually can change. I mean, we get to the point where so many gurus and so many people keep saying it's so hard to change. It's so hard to this. It's so hard to that. You can change on a moment, in a dime. What's so hard, and I think it's so important that you're bringing this up, Stephen. This is so important. You are not your thoughts. And the fact that you want to defend a thought versus defend your own self, isn't that getting in your own way?
It absolutely is. And it's like the echo chambers we talk about, right? Only the echo chambers in my own head.
Yeah.
Right? It's much easier to reinforce my thoughts than to examine them. And to be, go ahead.
So you said something earlier, and I kind of want some tips for this. You said building awareness, like when you build awareness, you can tell the difference between you and your thoughts. And I'm like, what are maybe just 3 ways people can begin to build some awareness so they can identify the difference between, oh, this is just simply a thought, and themselves?
I love it. So one of the first step is what we're talking about right now, to become aware that that's true, right? It is true that we are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are just thoughts. So one of the places that we can discover this is if we do meditation or mindfulness kinds of activities, and we learn to see the thought come. I think about it like the crawl at the bottom of the screen, right?
Yes.
There's this thought is just kind of coming across.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I can let it come and go. I don't have to like sit with it. But if I let it take up the whole screen, now it owns me, right? This thought now owns me. It becomes my reality because I let it take up the screen. But if I learn how to just allow it to keep moving across the screen, recognize it's there. Oh yeah, that's a thought. Okay. Not necessarily true, not necessarily false, just a thought. Right. Yeah. So I think mindfulness and those kinds of activities can help us begin to kind of peel this stuff apart. A second piece is to recognize that, you know what, when I'm thinking, when I'm trying to make a choice, when I'm doing my examination process, what's going to come up in my head are thoughts, old thoughts, right? Things that I have, rules of thumb I've come up with, or however you want to view it. But those thoughts, things I've learned in my past, they're going to come up. They're going to try to help me make my decision, right? And some of them are valuable, right? But some of them can also kind of confine me and keep me, especially from making those stretch kind of choices. Do I dare do this? Do I dare try this? Oh, all the stuff that could go wrong. Those are thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? Those are thoughts. Not to say that you shouldn't examine those. I mean, it can be helpful, but to recognize that they're just thoughts. So I think for me anyway, those are the 2 key pieces. And then I think a third one, you asked for 3, so I'll come up with a third one here. I think a third one is to examine what's happened in the past. When you've made a choice that later you go, you know, I didn't look at the whole picture when I made that choice. What was in that for me when I was making that choice? And what kept me from, especially from the courage, come back to that word too, what kept me from the courage to kind of make the choice that I wanted to make, but something held me back. What was that something? And most often we're going to discover that it's thoughts.
It's so important what you're saying, and around our community, our smart this club right here that we're talking on live, and around we have two things that we kind of live by. One is thoughts can only do two things. That's it. They can only do two things. We give them so much power, but they only can do two things. They will either impair your abilities or empower your abilities. So tools then the thoughts really become tools. You get to choose which thought is either going to impair you or empower you. That's your choice. And awareness allows you in the moment, the key, the hook to go ahead and choose a more empowering thought that benefits your potential or ability. So it's that Wayne Dyer, change the way you look at things and the things you look at will change. It's, that's change your thoughts, and it will change your entire life, how you look at things and see things. But to me, one of the things that we even don't even look at from the core is who taught us to think. Like, how did we learn to think? I mean, usually we don't even realize we get raised in a certain type of thought pattern in the household. Like for me, the way I noticed this, my dad was a complainer, and he spoke in complaints and hints. He never asked or made a request or stuck himself out and vulnerably said, I would like this. He was the kind of person that would say something like, I can't believe the prices at this restaurant. He would never say it's too expensive, I don't want to eat here. And so I remember growing up in the house, opening the refrigerator, learning to think and looking at it and going, there's nothing to eat in here. Not what can you get to the point where it's so subtle, so habit forming that we don't even look at the way we learn to think. And there's several ways, in my opinion, there's several kind of systems of thinking that are out there. And I call one speaking in complaints. And then, speaking in fear, that's the person who's constantly afraid of everything. And it's just a habit that we learn to speak in that way. Like, who taught you to think? And how do you unlearn the thinking you learned and learn the correct thinking that empowers your abilities? And Stephen, like you were saying, awareness, that first key, awareness, that's the number one thing to move forward with when we're looking at and trying to transform how we think. And at the core piece of what you were saying is just kind of analyzing, how do you think? Do you think angry thoughts, fearful thoughts, complaining thoughts, hateful thoughts? How do you think in the first place? Just identifying that one thing. How's it been impairing you? How's it been empowering you over these years? And what do you want to have? It's like we have a history of thinking as well as the indoctrination of our thinking at school. You know what I mean? So my question with all of that there is, how do you learn to unthink, so to speak? Do you understand what I'm saying? How do you learn to teach people to think differently than they already have because it's so ingrained as a habit?
Yeah, so it's like healthy thinking, right? How do I shift towards healthy thinking?
Correct.
And let me back up just a touch to build a little foundation here, right? So when we talk about thinking habits, we divide them into 6 areas. And those 6 areas are further divided into 2. So there's our inner thinking. There's like how I see myself and how my inner world, how I think about my inner world. And then there's the outer world, how I think about stuff outside of me. And these are very different. So how I think about my inner world are things like my dreams and my joy and myself, right? What do my thoughts say about me? What do my thoughts say about my joy in life? Like how much do I enjoy life, and can I, right? One of my growing up words or phrases was, why do you think you deserve to be happy?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So these phrases that stick in our heads, right? And they become the foundation for everything else, right? So if something wonderful happens to me in my life, the first thought in my head historically has been, you shouldn't be happy about this, right? We'll come back to should again. Should's an important thing we're going to talk about. So there's those three areas of my inner world. And then there's my outer world. There's how do I see other people? How do I see structure in my life? How do I see, the structure of the world and maybe my work life or whatever? How do I see structure? And then how do I see my work, right? The stuff I do every day, like what do I tell myself? What do my thoughts tell me about those things, right? So we have inner world and outer world. And what I do in the work that I do with folks is I help them break these pieces down. So I have an assessment that I'm going to share with you and our audience today, to help kind of look at these, because some of these you just can't see. Like you need help.
True.
Right? And so instead of
blind spots,
exactly. So instead of psychology, what we're going to use is we're going to use an objective mathematics called axiomatic mathematics, and we're going to break down how our values tell us about our thinking habits, right?
Wow,
like what we value. Cool. It's really cool. It's, I'm an engineer by training. And so I love that this is math, it's like math, so it's like real. No. This is how we get underneath it, right? Like that awareness piece. I love that I can help folks see like exactly what my thinking and what your thinking is telling you. Right. And so we can unpack that stuff. So I'm going to come back to the word should, because I've talked about that a couple of times. And you said something a few minutes ago about, when we say things and what we need to realize is that language and words create reality.
Absolutely. That is the number one way reality is created.
I would argue that it's the only way reality is created.
Agreed.
Right? We have to frame it in language. We might not speak it out loud, but in order for a dream, in order for something that I see in my mental place, my mental world, to become real in the physical world, I have to turn it into language. I have to use words. Right?
That's right.
And the words that I choose are really important. And one of the ways I can become aware of my thinking habits is to listen to the words I choose. So let me give you some examples. I should eat better.
Oh, yeah.
I need to exercise. I ought to save more money. Right? These are all words that I talk about as an external locus of control. They're outside me. Should says something outside of me is telling me what to do.
Interesting.
Right? Need is similar, right? Need is this idea that I must. I don't have a choice.
It's something outside of you.
I must do this. The locus of control is outside. But here's the truth. The only thing you and I can impact is what we control.
Correct.
And the only thing that I control, the only thing you control is what you think, what your emotions are, and what you do. That's it. I can't control you. You can't control me. I can't control the people around me. I can't control my environment. I can't control what happens to me. All I can do is choose what to do in this moment with reality.
In the present moment.
In the present moment, right? We're all kind of living through this weird time, right?
Yeah.
Weird time. So how am I going to live in this weird time? Because I can't change the time. I can't suddenly make us not isolated. I can't suddenly, go to a place where 100 of us can get together and hug and kiss each other and do all the things that I wish I could do right now. Right? I can't change that. But what I can do is decide, okay, how am I going to be today?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to show up today? Right?
Yes.
I get to choose that. I don't should. There's not a should about that. Oh, I should be happy today. Says who? Right? And like, they don't really, whoever they are, it's my choice. I choose to be happy today. I choose to be on Vickie's show today. And I choose to say, hey, and smile. And like, it's a good day because it's a day I'm breathing. I woke up on this side of the grass. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but I get to choose. So it's shifting my language, and that can help me shift my thinking. So if I catch myself, and I still do this, right? I've been at this work for a while, but I still catch myself every once in a while going, I should do this. Oh, I really need to do that. No, that's not true. All I need to do is breathe and eat like every 40 days or so, drink water every once in a while. That's about all I need to do.
I want to stop here for a second because something you said was so important about creating your life and languaging. And I want to say this is one of the areas, the key areas for me that I worked on the strongest in my life, which is my languaging, because the way you learn to think and speak is you getting in your own way. If you haven't stopped to ask yourself, who taught me how to think? Is my thinking even effective? Is the way I think healthy for me? If you haven't even thought of that, then you're kind of firing in a self-sabotaging way by your languaging, because you're just picking up what you learned in the past. You're not actually envisioning what might be languaging for you. My first glimpse into that, I was in London, and there was a book on the shelf called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And he was coming into London to give the lecture and do the workshop with him. And I couldn't put the book down when I read it. And his function of languaging changed my life. It was the thing that if I said, what's my Bible, that learning languaging to manifest, to express what you're actually feeling towards someone, to allow vulnerability out, those things that you have in your form of languaging are your quality of life. It's not just what you materialize, but it's a quality of life, and it is often ignored. We're not taught languaging. I think that was such a powerful thing that you said, and it's so powerful at creating your future. And what I'm wondering is, let's say right now that you had taken this quiz, this, check sheet, whatever that is. And at the end of it, you've said, you know what, I'm not sure I like these results. And I might want some different results in my life. I really think that we don't understand how often we get in our own way from materializing what it is that we actually say we want. And that work in there, I don't think, Stephen, most people know how to even work with this thing that they are. This is, to me, this is the heartbeat of your life, what you're talking about. This is the heartbeat of success or failure based on languaging, based on how you're thinking, and based on learning these things. What are some of the things or books, or how would you ask somebody who's thinking, I may want to change my thinking? What could they do?
So great overall thing, right? So I want to say a couple things to start my answer, and then I'll fill it out here a little bit. I don't think our education has done us a whole lot of favors.
I agree with that.
Ideas, right? Because our education teaches us that there's a right answer, and that we can't ask for help, right? We have to do our exams alone, right? We can't ask for help. We can't, in general, right? And that's just not life, right? It's clear to me that we're created to be in community, to be to enmesh ourselves with people that have different gifts than we do, and you have strengths, I have strengths, and they're probably not the same. So let's work together on this. And so part of my answer to you is work with other people, right? Whether it's some formal arrangement like a coach or a therapist or something like that, or whether it's less formal with others who are getting together in a mastermind kind of mindset that says, look, we all have the things we're trying to do, and we all bring different gifts and resources to the table. So let's sit down and talk about what we're each trying to accomplish, and we'll help one another, right? A mutual kind of guidance society, like Napoleon Hill talked about. So these are realities that are kind of underpinning part of our thinking habits, right? This idea, I have to do it on my own. I have to get the right answer. I have to know what to do before I start. I have to just, you talk about a checklist, right? I have to have a checklist. I have to have a plan, and I have to come up with a plan on myself. Right? Yikes.
I'm laughing because I know this place really well.
Right? So what if none of that's actually true?
Yeah,
So
it isn't true.
one of
I
my
can guarantee.
favorite people is Seth Godin, right? And Seth talks
Love him.
about schooling and how we are just not doing anybody ever any favors because of how we're teaching people. Because our school system was built for manufacturing.
That's
in
correct.
the early 20th century, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. It doesn't help knowledge workers. It's so old. It's just a mess. It's kind of like performance planning, but I won't go into that right now. But that came from World War II, by the way. So the point of all this, you asked me a question like how do we get started? And let's talk about Og Mandino for a minute, right? Og Mandino, if you haven't heard of Og was one of the original personal development gurus, right? He worked with W. Clement Stone back in the 50s and 60s. He was the editor of Success magazine, but he wrote a book. His first book was called The Greatest Salesman in the World.
I remember that, and I have it.
So The Greatest Salesman in the World, part of what he writes in that book in scroll number 1 is this, that principles are what will guide us to success. Not rules, not this checklist mindset, but principles. And my favorite reality of his book is in scroll number 2, which is the first meaty scroll, right? In scroll number 2, he says that the first principle is love. And how hard is it for us to think about love in our entire life, including what we do for a living, including the way that we collect income? And in scroll number 2, he says, and how will I approach people in my life? Silently and to myself, I will say, I love you. And this will unwrinkle my brow. It will show up in my voice, even if I don't say it out loud, right? And can we begin to shift our thinking away from this idea that work is competitive? There's only so much pie, and if you have any of my pie, then my heavens, I have less pie. No, let's bake another pie, right?
Yeah.
Right. Let's learn to do these things and to expand. We're back to that idea of surround yourself with people who will actually help you grow, as opposed to people who will encourage you to shrink, right? And this is hard, by the way. If family, for example, if family is one of the groups of people that doesn't like you to show up as your biggest self, that can be really hard.
Oh, of course. Yes. I mean, we're taught that very young, especially women. It's not good to show off. It's not good to speak up. It's not good to do that.
And boy, you want to get me rolling, Vickie? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I can talk about how women have been denigrated and shrunk for so long, and it just gets me going. I get so angry about it. I have 2 amazing daughters. I have a wife who's incredible, and all I care about is let's be people, right?
Yes.
This planet cannot afford.
That's right.
To not have everybody being who they are, like their biggest self, like doing their whole big thing. We're at half
capacity if we're not, we're working at half capacity.
I think we're less than half, right? Because we're so afraid of letting other people be who they are, right? And so I think this stuff is really important, and beginning to hear. So I'm going to give you another aspect of language that I've become aware of. As you know, another piece of my work is with the Secretan Center and Higher Ground Leadership. And one of the focuses that Lance Secretan has is, let's look at the language we use in business in particular, and look at how frequently we use war language. War language instead of love language. So, hey, I'm killing it. I'm killing it today.
Interesting. I'm crushing it. You're right.
Right. All this language that really, you'd stop and think and you go, I don't know that I want to do that. Right.
Wow.
Right. So we can think about why we do that, but
that's such a great observation.
Right. And what it does is it positions us against one another. Right.
Yes. Power struggle.
Right? It's all about power, and it's all about winning and losing, and it's all about right and wrong. Wow. And let's be clear, most things in life are neither right nor wrong, black nor white. right?
That's
Most
correct.
things, the vast majority of things, like Vickie, you can't make the right choice because there isn't a right choice.
Correct.
You can just make a choice.
That's correct.
And one of my mentors, who's a CEO of
That's
multiple
wait a
companies.
minute. I don't want to
Go
roll
ahead.
past that yet.
No, I was gonna
I want
say more, but go
everybody
ahead.
to really hear that
Yeah.
again. There's no right choice.
There's no right
So
choice.
the way to make, for me, the right choice is to allow your soul to tell you what way you could move, where they want you to go. And it's weird because we spend a lot of time looking for the right choice. We get analysis paralysis because we want to make the right choice, and there is none. So let that go. Keep going. That was beautiful.
Well, exactly.
So empowering.
And one of my mentors, a guy named Ed Williams, told me this a bunch of times, and he's absolutely right. We did a bunch of small startup companies together where we were really trying to be innovative and move quickly. And he would say this to me. He would say, you can only steer a ship that's moving. So make a choice, move forward. If it's not taking us down the path we want to go, we'll change. Right? We get this mindset that, oh my gosh, if I make a choice, I'm stuck with it. And nothing could be further from the truth, right? I can change my mind tomorrow if it turns out this choice isn't taking me where I want to go. Now, I probably want to move along the path a little bit longer to, and not just change because I ran into an obstacle, right? I mean, that's silly, right? Let's not do that. But at the same time, let's realize that I'm not making a permanent, like, set in stone. And even that's not true, right? Because you can set stuff in stone and get it out. So, right. So let's recognize that I don't have to figure out what's right here. I can go, you know what, with what I know, with what I'm thinking, with how things look right now, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to, as Scott is saying here, right? Let's act.
Yeah. Regardless of the choice, we have we have to act to know. Right. So good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, let's go down a path and let's see if the path ends up looking the way that we thought it would, right? How many times have you been on a hike, right? So we were talking earlier, we both live in Colorado, right? On a hike up in the mountains, and I go, well, is that the path or is that the path, right?
Oh yeah.
And you kind of start up one of them, and there's rocks and stuff, so that it's not really obvious whether it's a path. And then you see the paint on a rock, and you go, oh, okay, this is a marked path, right? So we can keep going this way. Or suddenly you go, I haven't seen one of those in a while, right? No cairns, no paint, no nothing. Maybe I'm not where I thought I was going to be, and maybe I should make a different choice, right? And that's the same as it is in life, right? Let's get, grace is one of those things, right? Let's give ourselves grace and go, hey, I made the choice in the moment that I thought was the wisest choice.
Yes.
And I'm going to grant myself grace. I did a good job with that, but I can change now. I can go a different direction, and that's okay. No judgment, right? No going, oh my gosh, that was stupid. I was wrong. By the way, this is my old thinking pattern, right? I was stupid. I was wrong. I was an idiot, blah, 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 right? I can get like,
you can just beat yourself up with that. Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, ask yourself this question. Have you ever made a choice which in the moment you believed was going to take you a place you didn't want to go?
Yes.
And what was behind that choice?
Fear.
So back to our good friend Zig Ziglar, right? Fear, false evidence appearing real.
That's right.
Right. And that fear stops us. And yet fear is an illusion.
It's a total illusion. It's nothing but an unhealthy thought gone wild.
Gone wild about a future you can't really see.
That's right.
And by the way, at the risk of getting, a lot of people kind of, upset with me here, we're living in a world where everybody, I can't say everybody, where many people are trying to make others fearful.
I agree with that. That is that's a sales tactic to make other people fearful so that you can sell. I really dislike that. It's so misleading.
And it used to be primarily to sell product, but now it's to sell ideas.
That's correct.
Right. But here's the truth, back to what we've been talking about all along, right? Your life is your choice. Your life is your choice. The path you choose to take, the attitude you will have, how it shows up, how the joy that you're able to pull from it, that's all your choice. You can be joyful or not. You get to choose that thing. It doesn't come from outside. It's a lie that your circumstances are what determine that. That's a lie. What determines it is yourself. So we talked about awareness, right? And a lot of this is about awareness, but that next layer, so that second thing is, okay, do I have some tools? Do I have some habits of action that will help me address some of these thoughts, some of these awareness?
That I think is so important to have.
And so this is one that, you know, it's going to be hard for me to even give you a little bit with a little bit of time we have, right? Because this is work. This is effort, right?
Yes, it is. This is where the work is.
This is where the work is, because it's a shift, right?
That's correct.
We have habits for so long of, especially that whole education thing. How many years are we in education that frames how we're supposed to see the world and how we're supposed to interact with each other and how we're supposed to, you know, just align with what other people say is right?
Yeah, it's just what Donnie says right here. Yes, we're afraid of letting other people be who they are. From an early age, we are indoctrinated into conformity as a society. Peer pressure exists everywhere, and the good old boy box exists everywhere. Are you brave enough to step outside of the box and be? Thank you.
Donald, that's just awesome.
That's
dude.
like, yeah, that's really, we have a lot of people who are, there's so much conversation going on, you guys. I'm putting you up there, but we can't keep going on, you know, because I want to bleed him of everything he's going to teach us. But this is so important right now, as far as to me, the fundamental form of success, happiness, and quality of life is exactly what we're talking about today. It is the work. And how then, what we're talking about is, what do you do when you catch yourself in that state of mind you don't want to be in? How do you pull yourself out? You've got to want to do that. And he's going to share with us as we continue the conversation as what he may do or what you can do.
Yeah. So I think one thing that can really help you is to realize you're not alone.
Agreed.
Right? What you're facing is stuff that everybody faces. So one of my colleagues at the Og Mandino Institute, in fact, he's the chairman of the Institute, Dave Blanchard, writes in one of his books of a dream he had of a room in the house, in the attic. And he opened the door to the attic, and in the attic is flying all of his thoughts and his worries and his fears and just everything in his life. And they're flying around and they're flying around and they're flying around and they're flying around. And he realizes this is what's in my mind all the time. All these crazy, just whipping around thoughts that are trying to get me to react.
Yes.
And to make choices really without
discernment.
Discernment. That's a good word. I was trying to say thinking, and I wanted to avoid that, but yeah, without discernment, without like taking a look at here's a question I often ask my coaching clients. Will this serve you?
Yes.
Will making this particular choice serve you? Is that what will help? Right. And, you know, I'm thinking about one of my clients that was, you know, presented with a very difficult life situation, like a physical health kind of situation, very, very difficult situation. And we were talking about how I have a tendency to feel like I should say certain things to him, and I should feel certain ways and express certain things, and I need to be supportive, and like all those words that we were just talking about. And he feels the same way, right? He should feel a certain way, or like there's all this stuff. And we had to remind each other, no, I get to choose. You know, you matter to me. I love you. You're important to me. This sucks that you're facing this difficult thing, but you still get to choose.
Yeah.
You get to choose how you're going to be today in the midst of this. Right. I lost my brother-in-law just a few months ago in March, and he had brain cancer, and to the last day, he was sitting in the hospital playing his guitar, inviting people in, being who he was, right?
Wow.
And then people were just able to connect with this loving human being, right? Wow. And we go, but who are you not to be that way, right?
That's
like
beautiful.
You can choose this today in everything that we're facing as a society, as a culture, all the stuff that we see going on, and people we agree with and don't agree with, and blah blah blah, all that stuff. But what if I could choose, because I can? What if I could choose to show up the way I want to be in the world?
Yes.
Independent
It's
of
so
others.
empowering to hear you say that, because so many times people say, this makes me, and what if you got to choose, you know?
And the truth
What
is
if
you
the
do.
power is in the choosing?
Yep. The truth is, look, this, I want to say this as clear as I can. I'm going to look as close to the camera as I can. You choose. Every choice, every moment of your life is a choice you make. You can't choose what
Yes.
happens, but you choose how you are in that
Yes.
moment. It's your choice. So don't ever say, made me, have to, blah, blah. You get to choose. And
This
yes,
is
there's
so
consequences,
important.
right? There's
This
consequences, but you get to
always, this
choose.
is so important. It's like you're either going to take your power and choose, or give your power away. And, you know, as we give our power away without thinking, or this is how we get in our own way, when we don't choose. When we don't choose to choose in each and every single moment, when we're unwilling to look at the choices and say, okay, this is where my choices brought me, I wonder where else my choices could bring me. It's so important, because if you're unwilling to have your own power to choose, then you're unwilling to have anything. It's
But
just
that's a
giving your
choice.
power away. And that is a
That's a
choice.
choice, right?
That's still a
So,
choice. It's an unhealthy choice, but it's a
right.
choice.
So here's the crazy thing. We can't not choose. We
That's
have to
true.
choose,
You have to choose
right?
every moment to moment to moment.
And it may be abdication. I may choose simply to just let life happen, but
Sure.
then life is going to spit me out if I do that, right? So you probably know from following me on Facebook, I'm a skier. I teach skiing up at
Yep.
Copper Mountain, and
I
I
do
love
know
the
that.
skiing as a parallel, right? So you
Hmm.
can imagine, even if you're not a skier, right? You can imagine if you're standing on the top of let's say, a steep hill with a bunch of bumps, and you made no choices, right? You just kind of, well, off the
Oh,
and went
yeah.
straight down, and don't turn, don't decide where you're going to go. Just how long are you going to last, right?
You're going to go 3 feet and fall, go 3 feet and fall, go 3 feet and fall.
And so that's what life is like, right? There will be bumps in life. There will be obstacles. There will be challenges. And it's a matter of how I want to be in the challenge, how flexible I am with myself, how much grace I give myself for making a decision and then changing my mind later. All of those people, as Scott here says, right? Every moment is a choice, right? It's a power of now. So here's another truth I'll add to our little conversation here. All you have is now.
That's right.
There is
That's
no
it.
tomorrow. There is no yesterday.
Yep.
And tomorrow is where fear lives. And yesterday is where regret lives, but they don't exist.
That's true. Those are all stories in your head.
That's
They're
all
all
it is.
thoughts that you're having.
That's all it
Beautiful.
is. So
Talk
all you have
about
is now.
bringing us into the now.
Yeah. So what are you going to choose in the now, right? How are you going to
Hmm.
be in this moment?
Yeah. Those are such strong questions to ask ourselves. You know, the seeds that we're planting in this conversation, Stephen, are some of the most powerful that can be utilized to create transformation in someone's life. And I think those things that we spend so little time on, because we're so used to using our mind to think in our daily life. We're so used to our habit of speaking that I remember this for me was probably the most powerful transformation I ever made in my life, was to stop and listen to my languaging. What did I say to myself? And the stopping myself when I felt defended or defensive. So that knee-jerk reaction, if you can catch yourself when you're angry or you're frustrated or you're afraid or whatever the sad, whatever you're saying, that one thought, that one hook that takes you out of the present moment. It almost feels like there's something, it takes you out of that present moment. How can people help themselves because part of this has to be caught. Right now we're doing the taught part. You and me are talking, we're doing a lot of talking and teaching, and that's really great. So we've taught. Now when you're out and you're off the phone and this call is over and you're out in your day and you find yourself being triggered by something, how can you come back to center in a way so that you're not being, so that you're, training your mind to do things differently? It's like how do I catch myself doing this now? And what should, lack of a better word, I don't know, what could I say to myself? What could I say to myself that would help me, empower me to make a different choice? Because to me, the power of what he's saying when he said, you choose, is that you have to actually teach yourself to choose. Teach yourself to choose in that moment. You're like, just a second ago, I said should, and then up caught, and you have to whip that around. And I know awareness is a key to that, but what other things can other people do or say that would help them rehabilitate their thinking?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier grace, right? Mm-hmm. So this idea, like, give yourself a break, right? You can't change this in an instant. Right. This is a work in progress. This is something that is going to take you out of your comfort zone. Right. That's part of this. That's part of the process. So you can't. I don't believe that it's possible to transform in the status quo. We have to move to an edge. We have to risk something. We have to try something different. Sometimes we can do it with ourselves. Sometimes other people help us. But it's that movement to an edge that allows us, it creates an environment for transformation. What if I tried something different? I'm playing with a piece of language in this process that I'll share with you. And I do this in skiing when I'm teaching people. We have a tendency to talk about working at things.
Yes,
right?
We do.
I'm going to work at this.
I'm certainly, yes, guilty of that.
And I am too. It's an old thought pattern. But work has this kind of getting it right, and effort is like, there's these connotations to work, and I don't think they have to be there, but I think they often are. So one of the things that I'm encouraging people to consider is, what if you play with your language?
Yeah.
Because there's no right and wrong here. There's nobody watching you play, right? Sometimes people watch you work, and you have a boss, and blah blah blah. But people don't watch you play. You're just playing. You're trying stuff. What if I jump from here to there on the jungle gym? What's going to happen, right? I'm playing, right? Yeah. What if I, like you just said, should? Well, what if you just paused and said, I was going to say should, or I said should. How could I say that different? Let me play with some different words here. What if I said, beautiful. What if I said, I can choose? Or what if I said, I could consider?
Ooh, that.
Or could this different view take me to a different place, right? I mean, let's play with it. And I would encourage you even to play with multiples and see how they feel differently. A big part for me is the energy shifts. I'll give you another example. A lot of people, when they're talking about themselves, will use the word you, Y-O-U.
Yes. When they're talking about themselves instead of me.
So Vickie, I might say, and this is going to be funny. When your wife comes home and she's had a rough day, and that when she talks to you like this, and you're thinking to yourself, what are you talking about, right? But if I say to you, hey, Vickie, when my wife comes home and she's had a rough day.
Yep, now we're there.
Could you feel the energy shift?
Absolutely.
Right?
There's a self-responsibility.
And there's an ownership that you might not even share some of the experience that I do, but now like you and I might experience a similar circumstance very differently because of who we are and our history, all that kind of stuff. But if I simply share what it's like for me, you might say, yeah, it's not like that for me when my family member comes home, but it has been like with that friend I have who that happened with, and I felt that way. And so I'm not painting it for you, I'm painting it for me, right? So what if I just play, recognizing, so I'm going to go back to something. How many times have somebody said to you, well, we're just arguing semantics?
Oh, I disagree with that.
right?
There's really a powerful change.
But
But
people
what
say
if
that, don't
somebody
they?
does that? Yeah.
Right? People say that. So
Yep.
here's the thing that's really weird. Do you know what the word semantics means?
Well, yeah, and technically my term, but I want to hear yours.
Semantics means meaning,
Oh, of course.
right? So what you're saying is, hey, we're just arguing meaning. Well, exactly. What else should we argue about, right? What else should we debate besides meaning? Yes, I used this word on purpose because I
That's right.
wanted to mean this, right? And yet we, there's this pushback of like, well, I use this word and use that word and they mean the same. No, they actually don't mean the same. And did you mean to use that word? Is that the implication you're trying for? Does it have the precision that you mean to apply? You're a writer too. I bet you do what I do. I write with a thesaurus.
I always
Because
have the thesaurus up.
the thesaurus.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure the word is just right.
That is so, that's the power of writing too, because I think when you write and from the first time you write, you get to sculpt your sentences, and languaging in that purpose makes. Have you ever read a sentence in a book that you just thought was like delicious, like, oh God, that's the perfect way of saying that? Well, that to me, that form of languaging, it's so natural to have it help create. And when you write, and whether you write one book, 5 books, 3 books, or whatever you write, it's the moment where you get to actually sit in front of how you operate, how you think, how your sentence is constructed. And when you have a thesaurus next to you, that's when you get to then tighten that, tweak that up.
Exactly.
And it affects your mind and language when you write. Now, 30 books later, because I have 30 books out, I have discovered that's one of the things that has helped me. It's very therapeutic almost to write a book, just because it is the practice of that. So it's the same with journaling. For those of you who journal,
Right.
you may not write a book, but it's writing a book.
Yeah.
You get to look at and observe how you think, how you speak, how you say things. One of the most important things that I think is so important about language is the listening and the receiving aspect of it. Because a lot of times we are so lazy with our languaging, we text, and how somebody receives that text is not often how you meant to say it or how you meant to convey it in that way. And I have a sense that most people would benefit from actually, to me, languaging is the key to thinking. And if you can work on that, even whether it's writing or whether it's journaling or whether it's just observing yourself or whatever you're doing, it's that changing the way you look at things, your perspective, your attention, your focus, how you want to act on those things. I'm so excited about this conversation because I think this is the core piece that actually changed my life. If people say, what's the one thing that changed your life? How did you get this? The being responsible for the choice. So what is it? Jack Canfield. Oh God, I hope I get this quote right. But he says, you have to be responsible for absolutely everything in your life. And nobody thinks, well, I need to be responsible for how I communicate on a daily basis as part of the responsibility for my life. But I think that is such an important thing to do, what you're saying. Just so important.
So it's helpful for me to be an engineer because part of my engineering work, I was a communications engineer, right?
Oh, interesting.
So I've done computer network kind of work since the 80s.
Yes.
Right? I'm old. I've got gray hair. I'm old. So one of the efforts that we have to do in communications engineering is to realize that both sides have work to do, the sender and the receiver, right?
Yes.
And the sender can send something that can get garbled in the channel, right? And then the receiver has to do something about that. It has to know that it's garbled. It has to ask for a retransmission, or it has to be able to correct the garbling, right? So this helps me as a coach and as a person, frankly, as I communicate as a writer, as a speaker, when I'm doing this kind of work, is to recognize that I'm speaking through a filter.
Of course.
I'm speaking through a filter of each member of my audience. So how do I help with the filter? How do I recognize it and speak or write to it and through it? And how do I recognize my own biases and how they can impact that communication as well, right? So these are all parts of how I play with language and make some effort to change it up. So, back to skiing, because it's helpful just to talk about something so simple. When I'm teaching a certain thing in skiing to a group of people, I will teach it and speak it and demonstrate it multiple different ways. Because not every student is going to hear it the same, see it the same, translate it the same.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you do the same thing in your books, right? As I do in mine, right? So I have to say it more than once, and I have to say it in different ways and paint the picture so that each audience member has an opportunity to experience it in their own way. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job as a communicator, because my job as a communicator is to make sure it gets all the way through the filter and is accurate when it gets there. And then they can make a choice about how they want to receive that.
I think this is like one of the most insanely great conversations that I have ever had on the show. It's so important. I want to ask you, if somebody wants to be involved with you, how can they be involved with you? And I think you're crazy if you're not, but how do they get involved with you?
So I'll give you a couple things. One, I'd love to have you follow me on Facebook, because I do a daily kind of inspirational thing on Facebook every day. And I have a website that is my name. It's also Infinite Summit, if that's helpful to you, because I think we can always climb higher. So that's why it's Infinite Summit. And so I have some thoughts there as well. And obviously I'm a coach. What I'd like to offer, though, for all of you, both listening live and by replay, I have that assessment that I mentioned earlier.
Oh.
And I'm going to offer that for free. It's usually like $100, but I'm going to offer that for free to all you guys. But I'm going to add something really special, because you're so awesome, Vickie. I'm going to do a 1 hour debrief with anybody that takes this as a result of our show. So I'm going to spend an hour with any person that takes this assessment.
For free? Did you say?
For free. Yes, for free. Just because I care. I want to help with that awareness piece, right? That's what we're going to look at is let's get aware of our thinking habits, my particular habits. So you can do this. You can look at these habits. Let me tell you just briefly about this assessment. It is a Nobel nominated technology. It's called axiomatic mathematics. Guy's name was Robert Hartman. You can look him up on Wikipedia. Axiomatic mathematics is about how we value things in life. And so this thing only takes 15 minutes at most. All you do is order 2 lists of things, from most valuable to least valuable. And as a result, we can look at your thinking habits. You get the results immediately.
That's so interesting.
You get the results immediately, you get them forever.
Karen put the link in there so people can just tap on it and go get it. So the link is in the conversation, would you? Thank you. That is quite the gift to allow that for free, and then an hour's worth of free time with him. That is amazing. Amazing. I just want to be able, thank you. Let's see, I'm just going to put this over here because you just put it in there. I'm just going to this is fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to throw it in the comments as well. You can go here, take the assessment, and get a free hour worth of time with him. That's the most generous thing. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
There it is. habitfindercoach.com/SSH.
Those are my initials.
Coffee Break Show. Yep. And there it is, free. There it is on the website. Listen, I don't know when you're going to be watching this. I don't know if it's a replay. I don't know if it's now. I don't know what you're going through in your life, but I do know this. I know Stephen can help you with this. I know that there can be such transformation with it. I know that because personally, I have taken myself through this. I know the value of this, and the offer is so generous. Just go to the site, which is the www.habitfindercoach.com/SSH, and get the assessment, get your free hour. It's there. It's a free hour of a conversation with an expert. And I really appreciate that so much. That's so very generous of you. Very generous.
I'm delighted.
Thank you. Stephen, I want to let you know that it has been a joy, absolutely so enriching to have you on today. It is, my mind is blown right now. I'm just so thankful that you said yes to being a guest on our show. And everybody out there, if you are interested, go get connected with him on Facebook because he does his daily inspiration thing. I know I will be there. And this has been the Coffee Break Show today. Thank you for being with us. I'm so glad you were here.
Bless you all. Good to see you.
All right. You guys, that's Coffee Break Show. We'll be talking about it tomorrow because it's either I get to talk about this beautiful conversation or I get to talk about the presidential debates, which is not going to happen on my show. All right, you guys, I'll see you tomorrow on Thursday. Mwah! Peace out. Thank you.